Good evening and welcome as together we explore experiencing death and loss and grieving mindfully. I invite you to make yourself comfortable and to give yourself time and space where you're at so that you will not be disturbed, hopefully, during this time. This isn't always possible, so do the best you can. There may be parts to what I say that could be difficult for you just now, as your pain may be unbearable and your heart breaking, but you are the best guide of what's right for you. We're all at different stages of experiencing grief and loss. And I invite you to be gentle with yourself, as the way you are grieving at this moment is your expression of your loss. Loss is part of everyone's life, and we all suffer loss in many ways. We are walking with death from the day we're born. There's one thing we're all sure of, that we're going to die. And the most uncertain thing is, when is it going to happen? Before we come to that final death, there are many small deaths, partings, or losses in all our lives, like leaving behind the warm security of the womb to come to be born into this world, leaving the security of your home to go to school, leaving school as a young teenager to face into a very different world, the unknown world, where you make your decisions for the first time, maybe on your own. Then there's the whole world of relationships opening up. All life is relational or irrelevant, so too is our religion. This leads to growth and the development of new relationships, successes, failures, one step forward, two step backwards. Finding new life each time opens us into a whole new relationship. Each mini death, whether it be leaving the womb, or a breakdown in a relationship, or a divorce, an acceptance of a serious illness, prepares us for that final death which leads us to new life, where we will experience no more tears or sadness. All these mini deaths and the final death bring us grief. These mini deaths affect our children big time, who miss their life as it was. If there's serious illness in family, the pain sometimes can be so difficult, children can soak up the anxiety, the worry that others are experiencing or expressing without saying a word, overhearing chats, phone calls, etc. And for other children, there's the pain of separation when families need to make difficult choices, and this too can be very traumatic. Change is scary for all of us, but especially children. We know we overprotected children in the past, which we know wasn't helpful. Today I invite you to allow pain in as it arises, so that if there are children, allow them to experience whatever loss and grief is there. Try not to protect them. Children need stability, they need routine, and this can keep them anchored during a loss. And sometimes they may not say anything, they may not say they're sad, but you know and you sense their sadness. Children need time, they need attention. And then you may find a moment where there's a window of opportunity when they can express themselves, be they at play or drawing, walking, maybe walking the dog, baking, or on the PlayStation, but just being there for them. Grief touches us all, and often we are changed profoundly by the experience. Grieving is a personal process to losing someone or something that's really important in your life. It's personal to you. Somebody else in the family is dealing it with differently. You may be grieving the death of a husband, a wife, or your child, a sudden infant death. a miscarriage, a loss of your son, a daughter, a father, a mother, an aunt, an uncle, a nephew, a niece, a granny, a granddad, or a grandchild. You may be grieving a neighbour, a teenage neighbour, the loss of your classmate, a colleague, a friend, a flatmate, a parishioner, an acquaintance. It may be loss of memory, or a loss of a family member's memory, loss of your voice, loss of your independence, your mobility and your privacy, maybe loss of your job, loss of your profession and status. For others, it can be the loss of their home, their business, your shop, your farm, your car, your dog or your cat, your herd of cattle, whatever is precious to you, that's your loss just now. When we're speaking about loss, it isn't always about death. There are different kinds of losses. And all our losses can be devastating because they affect us. As we face grief and loss for ourselves and for many of us, it can be a scary time. It's a time of the year that we dread, November. We're not at ease with our sadness. It's hard just to sit with your sadness, your tears. Sadness about the relationships that didn't work out, about not having the life you wanted or dreamt of. Often too, sadness come about when I'm not willing to face what's going on. And often scanning the whole lifestyle I have, or whatever it might be, and what's coming up for me, my fragility, my own pain. Or might be sadness around what I may be losing, or whatever may be arising that I'm going to lose in the future. Above all, whatever your loss is, be gentle at this time as we untangle some of the pain and the heartache, because that's what's there, deep pain. Bereavement is the event that your loved one has died, you've lost something, and grieving is the process to cope with that event. This time of the year is a sacred time. In our Celtic calendar, Samhain. It's a time to settle in at the fire and be with ourselves in reflection. The Celts saw darkness as the fertile state, full of dreams and possibilities, light and hope. We know the Celts believe that at Halloween time, our dead, our loved ones return to their own homes that they once lived in on earth. And our ancestors welcomed them back with the light at the window, the fires on and the feasting, and the evil spirits were scared off by masked dancers, the visiting neighbours. All in a fun way. The harvest was saved, and the cattle and sheep were home from the highway fields. The fishermen's boats were all tied up. The turf was in and stacked, and the wood was cut and all ready for winter. The people gathered in to celebrate Halloween night, the night of the spirits. And for hundreds of years, people have gathered in each other's houses and helped each other to grieve. The oil lamp lit to welcome their own back, and also to welcome the lost one. This November 2020 is different from any other November in our history. It's because coronavirus, the COVID pandemic, is with us, and there is so much change and loss throughout our world. There's a palpable pain and loss. It has changed people's lives in so many ways. We're all grappling with adapting daily into what we call the new normal. you're likely to be grieving the loss of your normal routine as well. Not being able to have your family for your birthday, or having your grandchildren a sleepover, or being able to go to your shop for the normal walk around and chat that you'd usually like, or have your hair done weekly. These simple, meaningful, precious moments are no longer on the calendar. Efforts to prevent the spread of coronavirus have to be there, and they have affected us. They have affected our jobs, where we work, how the kids go to school, how they play and how they don't play. Also, they have not allowed us to gather. These measures have changed how people worship. We can't go to our daily Mass. Our churches are open for prayer, but we don't meet after Mass. We don't have those. We can't go to have our moments with the sacraments. Also, if we want to go to seek entertainment or to the cinema, we're not able. We can't celebrate holidays together or special events. And as a result, the pandemic has had a devastating effect on us psychologically, causing us to lose a sense of safety, predictability, control, freedom and security. You might not realise it, but you don't only feel attachments to other people, you also feel powerful attachments to the places we work in. And again, sometimes these are not defined as losses, and we do feel the loss of them. There's also the anticipation of loss that can arise from just anxiety. What's going to happen? Will something happen, our neighbour or a loved one? And the resistance then from others. We're going to be fine, there's no need to worry about anything. And then there's those who dread the unexpected endings that can cause very strong emotions for adults and also children. And these are happening every day. We're hearing about them on the papers and the media. Not having the ability or time to prepare and be ready for a sudden loss, a miscarriage, a cardiac arrest, a change in a relative that hastens a death at home, a tragic accident or untimely deaths, leaving everybody stunned, numb, sad, bereft, devastated, lost, guilty and hurting, and sometimes so heartbroken no one knows how and when to take the next step. Just unspeakable, palpable grief. Grieving takes time, and we all grieve differently. You and I, we don't grieve. It takes patience for oneself and your family. There is no right or wrong way to grieve, and no two family members grieve the same way. We grieve the way we want to grieve. So make no comparisons. Just allow people to be with their grief. People hurt their own way, and allow them. The way you are grieving at the moment for you is right now. It could be very different in a few weeks. In Ireland, we are so enriched by our Celtic spirituality in our lives. We have a long tradition of coming together in our homes and the homes of the deceased person at the time of a death. And being with family members and telling the stories is so much part of our lives and our funerals. Sharing the good and the not so good stories about our family members, and being able to say them truthfully, no fudging. Our God is a God who loves us unconditionally. Praying for and with our dead, the lighting of the candle and the honouring of the soul and the blessing of it with holy water, and the singing of the rosary, and being with our dead quietly, families, neighbours, extended family, keeping watch all through the night, These are all of some of our lovely customs. We pray for our loved ones because we believe in the communion of saints, all our loved ones that are gone before us, our ancestors, there still is a vital flow of life between them and ourselves. Love and presence and communication reach through death. We and they are still in one community of life. In a real way, we can still feel each other and feel each other's hearts. Our prayer too is about our loved ones as they try to adjust to their new life without us and our lives without them. We are born spiritual, trying to become human. These wonderful customs that I've just spoken about and meaningful rituals still happen at wakes in our homes today, when families and friends and neighbours gather. Our funerals in Ireland are so rich in meaning and symbolism for many grieving families and so meaningful. They are always a source of great therapy for families, how we do it. It is also especially helpful for children and for teenagers, hearing all the experiences and the stories about the loved one. Because sometimes in the telling of the story, we bring the person alive. You may not have known them. And we also realise, they're a lot like me. Granddad was great fun. Or I didn't realise Uncle had such a life before this. We remember how they were. This communion of hearts and minds is church in the best sense of the word. Pobal arara, people taking care of each other. And this is what can create great healing during these difficult times of death and dying. But for us now, COVID-19 pandemic restrictions have changed the traditional ways we honour our dead and our grieving process. For now, at the moment with the restrictions, it's not possible for families to come together, for our extended families and our neighbours to come in and gather and go through that grieving process I just spoke about and described. It's not possible to have the large funeral where we have all our neighbours, our friends, extended family, and we come together and their prayers and our prayers together just help us through that awful day. It's not possible to receive the company and the condolences of those we wished at personally. And these expressions of sympathy and customs are sorely missed during these times of restrictions during the pandemic. However, we can support ourselves and each other during these days with the online book of condolences by texting, the phone calls, and of course the lovely letter writing, the mass cards, the emails, Facebook, etc. But for all of you tonight who have lost a loved one, especially during this time, we remember you and we offer you our sincere condolences. It's just so hard to mourn the loss of a loved one, especially at any time. But I'm aware of the long days when people are in lockdown, the long evenings, the empty chair, the place at the table is vacant as well. Especially when there are no callers or visitors, it is hard. Grieving and loss during COVID-19 pandemic throws up a whole new set of challenges over and above the usual grieving process. For some of you, you weren't physically with your family member at the time of their death. With restrictions in the hospitals or the nursing homes, you weren't able to be there with your relative holding them. You may have talked to them, or you may have had FaceTime and have had to sit at home and pray while they went through the end of life stage. You longed to be there, but it wasn't possible. Your loved one was cared for maybe by another family member or by a staff member from the nursing home or the hospital. And for those of you who never saw your loved one laid out after death, maybe they were coffined immediately that too brings its own pain and loss. And it all can happen so quickly and so suddenly, and there's no time to feel it at the time, because the whole funeral and the whole process goes on, and it's literally a roller coaster, and you're literally going through the motions. But then it's afterwards, and the days, the pain and the loss really arise in you. You almost can feel overwhelmed in your heart. The emotions, it can bring up regret, and it's all genuine. How you are feeling is how you are feeling. These are genuine feelings. The unique circumstances of these unprecedented times all add to the pain we experience during the loss of a loved one. Grief may cause you just now to be feeling numb, be empty, be angry. Or you may be unable to feel at all. You may just have no feeling. You're just literally frozen. Grief may be causing you physical symptoms like trouble sleeping, not being able to eat, just being exhausted, and just being socially withdrawn. You just can't go there. The phone just continues to ring. Keep in mind, however, that grief can also have some positive effects. For example, you might feel grateful for the brave and the caring people in the medical and caring professions in your community or in the hospital, for the ambulance services, for the carers, the nurses, your local shopkeepers, your post office personnel, and your good neighbours and family and friends. You might have increased appreciation for all your own great relationships and have a desire to help others who are experiencing similar losses to you. As awful as it might feel just now, grief serves an important purpose. Grief helps you to recognise that you have experienced a loss and that you're going to need to adapt to what's going on, and it's going to take time. And also that you have to have self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. To support you with your grieving process, it is helpful to, 1, pay attention to your feelings. The feelings can change. In the morning you could feel very sad, but in the afternoon the mood, maybe it can lift. Maybe you're looking out onto your garden and maybe, you may have a cry, and the next thing your dog might come by and just change that feeling. 2, think about your strengths and your coping skills and name them. Maybe you're a woman or a man of great courage, or a child who's got resilience. So you're able to be aware of what you need just now. There may be tough transitions ahead, but you'll cope. You've been there before. You may have had other losses. 3, stay connected. Don't let the social distancing prevent you from taking up the phone, asking for support, taking the text messages and reading them, reaching out if there's situations you need to get a check on. 4, create an adapted routine. Adjusting a routine to change just how you are. Maybe your energy levels are low. Maybe if you have to go back to work, having a shorter day. Maybe working from home is very supportive. Maybe it's not. Making decisions, taking time to go for a walk, and keeping your routine, your sleep routine regular. 5, limit your news diet. Listening to news just once a day reduces your anxiety, and taking support and just being gentle with yourself. 6, remember the journey. What wonderful memories you have, and allowing those to flood you some days when you're low, going back to great events, small events and moments. They just hold you. And 7, take comfort in creativity. It may be being in your garden. It may be being in the kitchen, making a lovely scone. It may be weeding, not so pleasant some days, or it may be just being with your dog, training a dog, a new dog, whatever. And just these moments give you time to adjust. If you're finding it hard and you're not getting there and you need support, maybe seeing your GP is what helps for you. If it's around your job and you have changes in your job and you need support, you may need to go to the mental health services. Whatever you need, there is no judgment. And as we bring this week's work, our chat, our talk to a close, we know that we grieve emotionally. We know we grieve physically. It affects our bodies. And we also know we grieve spiritually. And so to conclude, can I invite you just to sit back and listen to that lovely poem For Grief by John O'Donoghue. When you lose someone you love, your life becomes strange. The ground beneath you becomes fragile. Your thoughts make your eyes unsure, and some dead echo drags your voice down. Where words have no confidence, your heart has grown heavy with loss, and though this loss has wounded others too, no one knows what has been taken from you when the silence of absence deepens. Flickers of guilt kindle regret for all that was left unsaid or undone. There are days when you wake up happy, again inside the fullness of life, until the moment breaks and you are thrown back onto the black tide of loss. Days when you've had your heart back, you are able to function well until in the middle of work or encounter, suddenly with no warning, you're ambushed by grief. It becomes hard to trust yourself. All you can depend on now is that sorrow will remain faithful to itself. More than you, it knows its way and will find the right time to pull and pull the rope of grief until that coiled hill of tears has reduced to its last drop. Gradually, you will learn acquaintance with the invisible form of your departed. And when the work of grief is done, the wound of loss will heal, and you will have learned to wean your eyes from the gap in the air and be able to enter the hearth in your soul where your loved one has waited your return all the time. And to finish homework for the next week, I invite you to sit with your loss this week. Whatever your loss is, a person, a place, or thing. I invite you to feel and befriend that grief and understand it is a healing process and it's going to take time. I've said a lot tonight. Maybe it's only a few words are going to hit you. Be gentle. Don't force the grieving process. There'll be ebbs and flow because there'll be ups and downs in your days and your moments. Know that you're not alone out there. We're a community grieving together this November. Join us next week to explore the stages of grieving and how each stage contributes to your healing. I invite you also next week to have a candle available to you or a tea light, as we'll finish with a ritual to honour your loss, whatever that loss may be. Good night, and thanks for being with me. Good evening and welcome back this week as together we continue to explore the grieving process and the stages in grieving. I invite you to make yourselves comfortable and give yourself time and space where you may not be disturbed. Again, this is not always possible, but you do your best for what's right for you. There may be parts of what I say tonight difficult as we go through the stages of grieving, because it's different for all of us. Or you've just maybe recently bereaved. But allow yourself to be at whatever is arising for you just now. Be your own guide and do what's right for you. We are all at different stages of experiencing grief and loss. Some of you can have started the grieving process even before your loved one has died. You may have been caring for them at home, or they may have been a long time in a nursing home and you have had a grieving process over a year or a number of years. Again, I invite you to be gentle with yourself, as the way you are grieving in this moment is an expression of your loss. As we start, just let's take a few moments to become mindful of this moment. Many of you have been attending the mindfulness classes, and we know as we pay attention with intention in the moment, in a non-judgmental way, we are becoming mindful. The bell invites us to come into that moment. It's open. Settle in quietly into your chair or stand if that's what you need to do. You may wish to close your eyes or just lower your gaze. Be aware of your feet on the ground. Mother Earth is nurturing you and all that possibility and positivity is coming from the earth to you at this time. Taking that dignified, upright posture of either sitting or standing, become aware of your body. If you're standing, you're having that noble mountain pose. If you're sitting, just sitting in the dignified, upright position and just aware of a living, breathing body, your living, breathing body. And as you breathe in, just noticing the rise and the fall of your breath, the rise and the fall of the chest. Just being with the body. Your mind may be pulling you away to planning, to projects or whatever, and just that's what minds do. So just come back to the breath. The breath is the anchor. It's the gateway to presence as well. So we have arrived, we're here. So from last week, from our reflective moments on loss and grief, we were left with the stark reality that our lives are changed. All our lives are changed differently. And we acknowledge that what we're experiencing is natural, it's normal, our deep sense of grief and loss. We know that from deep within us, life is precious, moment by moment. We are all assured that through our faith, our loved ones are in the eternal, and the eternal is not a faraway galaxy. They have evolved into that eternal world where life is changed, not ended. Meister Eckhart says the dead are here with us, invisible to us, but we can sense their presence. And they're looking out for us. And that's reassuring and comforting. The Celtic people didn't divide time from eternity. Eternity is pure presence, pure belonging. A new heaven and a new earth where everything belongs. And so this evening, we come and we grapple and struggle with our loss. All of us having different kinds of losses. The poet Rumi says, we are companions and night travellers, unwilling to face our fears. And that's so true. What do? We run away from our fear. We try to spend the day tidying or cleaning or doing things, anything, just to get away from it. The busy mind pulls us off. But grieving mindfully offers us an opportunity to pause, just as we did, pay attention with intention to what has happened in our lives. So, we need to come out of the autopilot, away from the busyness of what we're doing, and come and be with ourselves, making time for ourselves, for what's going on in our lives, the emotions that are arising, the body sensations. In other words, opening up to what's here. And this brings me this evening to the 5 stages of grieving. Those stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. These stages were developed by the psychiatrist Elisabeth Kubler-Ross, who suggested that we go through them, not all, one after the other. We go through them in different, maybe sometimes we go through 2. We could be going through denial and anger at the one time. We may not go through them all at all. We won't experience them sometimes in the order that they're given to you, just there on the slide. Sometimes the lines between the stages are often blurred. We may move from one stage to another. Say we may move from denial to anger, but go back again to denial. Or we may be at 2 stages together. We may be at anger and at depression. But being mindful will help us big time, because it will help us to be able to understand the stage we're at. Just being able to come back and pause and stay with, if it's the depression, the blackness, the wall that depression can have. And sometimes people can get frozen in those stages and get stuck and get overwhelmed with the feelings and the emotions. Some people can experience the stages very, very quickly and move on after weeks, whereas another person may be months, even years, to get to that place of acceptance. Some people do not begin the grieving process for maybe 12 months. As I said, they may have got frozen in a stage, and often family think, oh, she's fine or he's fine, but they're not. And you may need to tell them, I'm not, I'm stuck, I need help to move on. It's all about just understanding why what has occurred, making no judgments. There's no such thing as you have to be through some stage after so many months. It's not. It's at your pace. You may think you've arrived at the acceptance stage, and all of a sudden you're out one day and you think you're fine, and the next thing you see somebody that may have been like your mother, looks, her hair, the whole lot, and you're back to almost denial. It's not true. That's her, and for a split second. And that's okay. That happens. Whatever time it takes to move through the stages is perfectly normal. Some weeks there's a roller coaster, you're back and forward, and you don't know what's going on. So let's go through the 5 stages. So there's denial. What's denial about? It's not true. I don't want to go there. I don't want to know about it. I can't deal with it. Maybe you can justify it at an intellectual level, but certainly not emotionally. And you're left in this awful place. And even sometimes you can come to an acceptance as, I just can't get it. Yes, I was in denial all along. And then you go on to the anger stage, and maybe anger and denial are going on together, where we're blaming and hitting out at everybody. Hitting out at people in the family, or hitting out at the hospital, or hitting out at the GP, or hitting out at whatever services have been coming on. Sometimes also anger can be very much, if it's somebody has died by suicide, it can be very difficult to name the anger at the person for what has happened. And sometimes we're very aware that people, as I said already, start the grieving process a way back if somebody has an illness. And as chaplains or as health professionals, we notice the anger in relatives. And they may not be aware of it. Now, their anger might be justified about something, but their anger can be around the fact that their loved one is very, very sick and they just can't come to terms with it. And sometimes, in the end of the anger stage, you're aware, I was awfully angry these past months. I lashed at everybody. And then there's the bargaining. We'll do anything if we can change what's the reality. You know, and I suppose we go back to it, we're great for a bargain. It's our human condition. We'll bargain to see if there's a way out of this. We've got to, this can't happen. And I suppose we come back to it. Jesus tried it himself at the Garden of Gethsemane. He said, Father, if this cup, if it only could change this. And then he came to, your will be done. Acceptance came to him. He was human, yet he was divine. And after the bargaining, we realise, I was just in there. And we come at this stage to accept, I was bargaining all along. I just wasn't able to take it in. Then there's the depression, that awful wall where there's no energy. You're just left for dead, as it were, and you're just tired and bit out. You just can't go there. Sometimes you withdraw. You just don't want anybody. You don't want people to call. You just can't go, and you're frozen in it, and you just mean. And this is when COVID-19 is there, and sometimes during the depressive stage, people need people to call, take them out for a coffee. People often come and take people to the cinema. It isn't there now, so depression can be hard on your own at this stage of the grieving. And this is where friends need to, send the old email or the texts or the WhatsApps or whatever it is, just to keep the link. And sometimes we have to say, hey, I'm really up against the wall. I'm after hitting it. I'm in a dark hole. Help me. We have to call it out for what it is. And again, to be able to accept the stage. I went through a bad depression there for a few months. I just wasn't able. I just couldn't get myself out of it. I couldn't get dressed. I couldn't believe that I'd lost the person that was most significant, or I couldn't believe the relationship is over, or my job isn't there. I just can't. And sometimes we have to go to medical professionals or GP or whoever, or services if it has to be a service to help me with mental health, just to help me over it. And it helps. They know and they help us through it. And then there's the acceptance stage. You've got there. The healing is coming. It doesn't hurt as much anymore, and there's a bit of a glint in your eye, and you're beginning to be able to take things in your stride. It doesn't hurt as much. I can move on. You're still able to hold the part that's sad, but you're still able to open for lots of joy in moments. And it's okay. And you're able to accept, I'm far better, I'm in it. Whatever stage you're at in your grieving process, be with it. Just notice the back and the going back and forward, and stay with it. At the right time, you will be able to come and feel that. and feel at ease, and know that your loved one wants you to move on as well, or that the loss you have in the relationship or whatever it is, that things will move, things will shift. Having gone through the 5 stages, can I just invite you to take a moment and just be with the stages for yourself, because I just want to move in a minute to support the grieving stages. I just want to offer you a mindful practice called the 4 remembrances that I think would be a great help. You needn't do them all one after the other. You may just take one, but I'll just take you through them gently. Again, I invite you to come back to your sitting position, and just as we always do when we go to do our practice, just take the dignified posture, bring back and ground ourselves. Paying attention with intention in the moment. And the first gentle exercise is pause for presence. So it's stopping and recognizing and allowing what's here. Letting go of all the rest and coming back to the breath. And taking those maybe 2 or 3 long breaths, in breaths and out breaths the same, and just being with that breath and just stopping and pausing. And even if you're in the middle of a stage where there's great anger, pausing for presence will just ground you and bring you back, because we can lose it when we're in the angry stage and say stuff we didn't mean. We know what we're saying. The second exercise is saying yes to what's here. Setting your intention, again, just bringing the need for that compassion, attention to yourself. What's here today? Maybe it's hurt. And grave hurt about a situation, about in a relationship or in a loss. And just being able to express that hurt. We can only respond when we're able to be with what's going on. And from there we can have the courage to go on and face whatever it is with compassion, being with ourselves in that place of hurt. And when I say yes to what's here, I do notice a shift in some part of my body. Just I notice how I am with myself, in my heart and in my mind. The next exercise is turning towards love. All during the grieving process, there's sadness, there's tears. Some days you just don't know how you're feeling. So it's turning towards love, becoming aware, I am lonely, I am depressed, I am anxious. Is it ever going to shift? Is it ever going to move? Will I ever be able to live on my own? And give yourself permission to connect with love. Connecting with yourself and just being gentle, and even being able to say, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay today. It's been a rough day, but just, you're okay. It may be just holding yourself, just giving yourself that hug with your arms, just holding yourself and just being with yourself. Being that compassionate heart for yourself, because we can be it for so many other people. And it may also be just calling on the person you love or someone you know that loves you, just to give you that love that you need just at that moment. That's saying yes, turning towards love. The more you intentionally let in love, you'll express it later on. And now, The fourth exercise is rest in awareness. And again, the intention is to stop the doing. The busy mind has us all about doing, and rest in awareness. And this is what's going to help us in those stages. When we're in the denial or when we're frantic in the bargaining. It'll bring us back, or when we're in the roller coaster. We'll be drawn to rest in awareness with ourselves. Drawn to take a breath. Drawn to listen to the wind. Drawn to look at a flower. Be with our dog. There'll be a lot of feelings going on, but just allowing them to be there, but just coming back and just resting. This practice, the 4 remembrances, can be used many times during the day, and they're going to be a great support to you in your stages of grieving. And you can draw them at anywhere in the day, any time, in the car, in the shopping mall, in the queue, at the doctor's surgery, wherever you are, if you're just feeling overwhelmed by any kind of emotion or feelings. So having gone through the stages, which we have, and just done that practice to support us in them, cultivating courage and opening up to healing on the journey is very, very important if we're to continue to grow. Coping with our loss is ultimately a deeply personal and unique experience. No 2 people do this the same way. And nobody can do it for you. You have to go through it yourself. More especially, nobody can understand the emotions, what you're going through. Grieving is greatly helped by our faith, by our spirituality, by our families, by our close friends, by our colleagues, by our neighbours. For some it's a bereavement group, for others it's a mindfulness group. Some people wisely avail of one-to-one counselling and comfort. Pets are a wonderful support during the grieving process. The best thing you can do is allow yourself to feel the grief as it comes over you. As I said, you can go back and forward in the grieving process. Resisting it will only prolong it, and it's a natural process to healing. Sometimes acting brave doesn't always work. We've all done it, and it's in the long run it's harder. Without ongoing encouragement and support, many people can remain stuck, and they may be unable to go on. So it's very, very important to have friends who are looking out for you. Mindfulness can help, as we've just said there, because it just helps us to stop and to be with those feelings. There are no prizes for arriving. Trust your own grieving process. Over time, you will understand that mindful grieving means feeling your emotional turmoil, allowing it to be, and opening up to whatever is there, rather than suppressing it, which can ultimately lead to more suffering. It means embracing the life of your dead relative, or of whatever situation you've been in. Embracing the faults or the failings or the suffering or the regrets or whatever has been. It means embracing memories and the loss. And it means accepting that life is often far shorter than we ever think or expect it's going to be. It's never easy because we have loved. Those we love live on in our hearts. They never really die. And as you light your tea light and we come to the ritual part of the evening, may the radiance of the divine shine within the walls of your home or wherever you are this night. As we remember our ancestors and all we inherited from them. We stand on their shoulders, and may we too be proud of our heritage. Let us pray this night for all the loved ones, all our loved ones who have died, especially those since last November who touched our lives. May they now share in the power of the resurrection. Let us remember too those who graced our planet with great love and care and sensitivity, those who walked lightly on the earth in harmony with the community of light and life. Let us remember the dreamers and the prophets and the poets, the mystics and our great religious teachers, church and state leaders who had vision and voice. Let us too remember tonight our environmentalists, all who cared passionately about the health of our planet down through the many years. Let us remember scientists, explorers, all who give us knowledge and insight through the generations and who still do it as we try to cope with COVID. Let us remember all who showed great courage in the face of hardship, in the face of sickness, in the face of war and adversity. We remember too all those who have died violently through domestic violence, through war, through natural disasters. We pray that we will learn to love all other humans, whatever their colour, their gender, their race or their creed, with the tender, compassionate love of our God. You remember too tonight those who have no one to remember them, whose lives are not celebrated by others. We give thanks for their unique contribution to our world. And as our ritual draws to a close this evening, we pray for all your families, for all your losses, whatever losses they may be, for your ancestors. Death is not the end. We are certain about this. It's God's promise to us. Jesus' rising from the dead wasn't a once-off rising. We share in the resurrection every time we see new life around us, every time we get up and start again. There are many resurrections in all our lives. Every time we experience forgiveness, and every time a person dies. We ask the Lord to continue to guard and protect us all at this time of COVID-19 and inspire us to walk gently on the earth as we belong to this great chain of being. May His light shine on us and give us hope, courage and strength to continue on our journey. May all our loved ones rest in peace. Thank you for being with us this evening, and good night.